Hello Year 4, this is your Jigsaw lesson for this week. And in Jigsaw this week, we are going to be looking at the roles in friendship groups. Okay, you might have more than one different friendship group. You might have a friendship group in school, you might have one at home. And I was thinking about how everybody is different and how they handle situations are different. And thinking about what kind of role do you play in your friendship group, and what kind of role, what kind of person do you want to be in your friendship group. So what I have got on the screen is roles in a friendship group, and I've got 5 here. You might have different ones, you might have more, but I want you to maybe try and identify the roles in a friendship group. So this could be sort of like a leader, this could be the funny one, the one who looks after everybody. Have a little think about what roles in a friendship group there are. Think about what role do you play in your friendship group. If you pause the video and write down maybe as many roles as you possibly can, and then I'll share mine with you. Okay, welcome back if you had a go at that. So I'm going to show you some of mine. So you might, in your group, have a leader, and this person normally is the one who decides on how to do things and what to do, what games to play. Another one might be a funny one. You might have one who makes jokes all the time and thinks everything's funny. You might also have a shy one. So you might have a friend who is really shy and prefers to just see what happens and sit back and watch. Another one could be who looks after everybody. So they might be a bit like, act like a mother and look after people. Another one could be a follower. And this could be someone who just quite happy to just go along with it and play the games that other people suggest and is quite happy doing so. Now, what I want to express to you now is that it is okay to be any of these roles in a friendship group, okay? A lot of these roles is about your personality and how you are as a person. And each of these roles that I've suggested on here are all really, really good roles to be, okay? None of them are better than others, and none of them are worse than others, okay? So whatever part you play in your friendship group, then you might think that is a negative, and it's not, okay? So it's all of these things are positive and might not be in every friendship group, but some of them might. You might see some of them in some friendship groups. But let's move on. So let me move myself over here. I've got some scenarios here, okay? And I've got 3 scenarios you might find yourself in when you're with your friend. And I've got some questions at the top here. It says, how do you find handling a difficult situation? And how would your friend handle it differently? So we're thinking about handling situations here, and how you would feel and how you would handle a challenging, a difficult situation. And normally in friendship groups, there comes times where it does get a little bit challenging and you think, oh, I'm in a situation here and I'm not sure how to get out of it or how to solve it. And this is what we're going to sort of talk about on this slide here. You also just need to remember that you might handle that situation differently to how your friend might handle it, and that's okay. So I'm going to read out the 3 scenarios. So number 1. You are at a friend's house and you want to watch TV, but your friend wants to play on the computer. Scenario 1. Scenario 2. Your friend always wants to sit next to you, but sometimes you like to sit next to someone else. And then scenario 3 is your friend asks you to help him mend his bike on Saturday, but you want to go out with another friend who has asked you. So these are 3 situations you may find yourself in more than once. You might find yourself in it a couple of times, but I want you to think about how are you going to handle that situation, because you don't want to upset anybody. You want to be kind to everybody, and especially you don't really want to upset your friends. And you want to protect your friendship. So I want you to think about how are you going to handle those 3 difficult situations. What I would like you to do now is pause the video and have a go at answering those scenarios. What are you going to do? And whilst you're doing it, think about how would your friend handle it differently? Would somebody else handle it differently? Okay, pause the video now. Okay, welcome back if you had a go at those one. So I'm going to quickly whiz through these scenarios and then I'm going to explain what your activity is today. So number 1, you are at your friend's house and you want to watch TV, but your friend wants to play on the computer. Now, I'm going to tell you what I would do in this situation. You might handle the situation slightly differently, which is absolutely fine, but we want to handle the situation where we don't upset anybody and we don't upset ourselves. So we both come out of the situation happy. So what I would do is I would suggest to my friend, say maybe can we play on the computer for half an hour and then watch TV for half an hour, and compromise. So you're both doing something you want to do and you are compromising with what each other want to do. And hopefully your friend would think the same thing and think, yeah, I'll spend half an hour on the computer and then we'll spend half an hour on the TV. So you're both doing what you want to do, but you're sort of sharing it. So that's what I would do with scenario number 1. Scenario number 2. Your friend always wants to sit next to you, but sometimes you like to sit next to someone else. Now, I find this one a little bit of a challenging one because you don't want to upset your friend who wants to sit next to you all the time, but you also don't want to upset the other friend who wants to sit next to you. So what I would sort of hope is that I've got 2 spaces either side and I can sit next to both of my friends. If that isn't possible, which sometimes when you're in the classroom it isn't possible, you can maybe try and sit near both friends. So it could be sat on the opposite end of the table or sat on the table somewhere. So you're near your friends still, okay? So I would suggest sitting near both of them and I'll just kindly say, I would like to sit next to both of you. Can we try and find space where we're sat together or near each other? Okay, so that's what I would do for scenario number 2. Then number 3, your friend asks you to help him mend his bike on Saturday, but you want to go out with another friend who has asked you. Now, this happens a lot, I think, in friendships. You get asked by one person to go and do something, and you double book, and I find it very difficult to keep up with making sure that I'm seeing all my friends at the right times and I'm not double booked or I'm not doing something else when they're free. And it's hard to try and find some time where you're all free to do something. Anyway, so what I would do in this situation is I would go with the friend who asked me first. So if one of my friends asked me on Tuesday to do something at the weekend, and then my friend asked me to help him with his bike on Saturday, asked me on a Thursday, then I have to go with the person who's asked me first. And that's how I feel about it. So those are 3 different scenarios there. There's lots and lots of situations you're going to find yourself in where you don't want to upset anybody and you want to compromise in those scenarios. So you might have come up with something slightly differently. Maybe when we get back to school, you can ask your friend, say, well, what would you do in this situation? And maybe sort of think about, can I handle this situation slightly differently? Is there a different way? Is there a better way? Okay, so that's what we would do in those scenarios. Right, on to the next slide. So today's activity, we're going to be thinking about animals. We're going to think about animals being sort of humans. So on my screen here, I have a gorilla and I've got some questions at the top here. How do they move? What their facial expressions might be, and what would their voice sound like? So I'm going to try and imagine a gorilla sort of being a human, being one of maybe my best friends. And I'm going to think about, well, how do they move? How do gorillas move? What their facial expressions might be, and what would their voice sound like? Why don't you pause the video now and have a go answering those questions and thinking about a gorilla, and then I'll share what I have put as my answer. Okay, welcome back and well done if you had a go at that. So what I put for gorilla is they give good hugs. I can imagine a gorilla, they're big, aren't they? And I can imagine they give lovely, lovely big hugs. I can also think their voice is deep and quite scary. I can imagine them being quite, that kind of tone, deep and a bit scary. I can imagine their voice being a bit booming and loud. So that's how I imagine a gorilla's voice be. You might have put something slightly different. I can imagine them moving around, stomping all the time. Okay, they're being boom, 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 boom all the time. That's how I imagine a gorilla being, because they're big, aren't they? And they're quite heavy. So I can imagine them making lots and lots of noise as they're stomping around, moving around. And then I've put the frown. So I can imagine their facial expressions being quite frowny. And if you look at a picture of gorillas, sometimes they're always frowning. You sometimes might see gorillas quite excited and happy, but I can imagine my gorilla being a bit frowny. Okay, so that's what I thought for this one. And your activity today, okay, I'll put myself down here, is your worksheet is going to look like this. I've just chopped it a bit so it fits on the flip chart screen. I want you to draw a picture of your animal. If you wanted to find a picture on the internet and print it off and stick it there, that's absolutely fine. So my animal I've chosen to fill out my sheet is a snake. Okay, and you're going to fill out these 4 boxes, and I've done this like this. So words to describe your animal. I've said long, they're slithering, and it is a reptile. Okay, so that's how I've described my animal. You might come up with other words to describe a snake. You might come up with other words to describe your animal. Another box says, how does your animal act around friends? What role does your animal take on? So how does your animal act around friends? I've said, what I imagine is a snake, isn't it? I can imagine them being quite sly. And snakes, they sort of wait, don't they, till their food comes out and they pounce on them. So I can imagine them being a bit sly, which means sort of another word for sneaky. They might be disloyal. So we know loyal means that you're always on your friend's side. Being disloyal means you're sort of not really on your friend's side. And stirs trouble. I can imagine snakes stirring a bit of trouble. So they cause a lot of trouble in friendships. That's how I imagine them being. And then down at the bottom, I've got, how does your animal deal with uncomfortable feelings? So I've got hides them. I've spelled hides wrong there. Sorry, there we go. So I can imagine a snake would hide their feelings and emotions. Mainly because I think snakes don't really have many emotions and feelings. They're very much want their food, and that's that. So I can imagine them hiding when they feel uncomfortable or scared. And I can imagine them as well, they get angry about them. Okay, so if they do feel maybe uncomfortable feelings, maybe they get a bit angry about them. That's how I imagine it. You might think something slightly differently about how a snake, how a snake deals with uncomfortable feelings. And then the last box is, why would you or wouldn't you want to be friends with someone like this? So I have put, I wouldn't want to be friends with someone like this because they aren't very kind and they are selfish. Okay, so I've got my snake is sly, it's disloyal, it stirs trouble, they hide their uncomfortable feelings and don't share. I find these people, well, if a snake anyway, be not very kind and a bit selfish to their own needs and feelings. So that's a snake. I don't think I would want to be friends with a snake. Not because they look scary, but maybe because of their characteristics. So I want you to fill out this sheet with your chosen animal. There is a suggested list on the wider curriculum overview, and have some fun with it, okay? Just think about the characteristics of that animal, like how I did with the gorilla. Do a little brainstorm first. It's up to you. I hope that you have fun with this lesson and have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.